Hi, you're a retiree, or you're coming up for retirement, or you will be retired one day. And when you look back over your life, your working life, which could be anything from 35, 40, 50 years or more, you now look back on your life and you think, well, that's behind me now. What have I experienced? What have I learned? Is it worth recording? Is it worth other people knowing about my experiences, my life, what I've learned? Many people don't consider that at all. I know my mother considered it briefly, wrote down a few written ink notes, left them, and of course made very little sense. Even though she'd had a really unusual childhood, having been born in India in the days of the British Raj way back in 1900, and not actually arriving in England, where I was born, until 1930 or thereabouts. What will you leave by way of a record for the people who follow you? The children, grandchildren, particularly the grandchildren, or maybe even the great-grandchildren. They will look back on the era that you lived in and wonder. And you're in a terrific position now, in the mature years of your life, to record your life for them. And you might think, well, they won't be interested. Probably your kids won't be interested, not until you die. And then all of a sudden, the interest comes. We can't ask Dad or Mum anymore. They're gone. Did they leave any records? The best record you can leave, for those who follow behind, is a written autobiography. Write your autobiography. If you're not a writer, tell it to someone else who is, so that they might record it. Pictures are good, pictures are wonderful. Charts and graphs and all of that sort of thing that you might want to include. Certainly you want to include family photographs and the major events in your life. For example, when you got married, where you were brought up, scenes like that. Today, of course, with the smartphones, there's so much recording going on, it's almost overwhelming. But in the old days, those black and white photographs were often all we had. And many of them are lost. I don't have any of my childhood photographs. The earliest one is probably when I was 15 and I'd already arrived from the UK in Australia in 1951, a long time ago. All of the adventures, all the places I lived in World War II, in the UK, no record whatsoever. So what happened? When I reached my retirement, and I retired at 59 after working for 44 years, one of the first things I did is thought, I'll write my autobiography, which I did. And it was quite a big task. Covered from when I was born until I was 60 years of age. Now, I'm 88 now. I haven't really recorded much about my own life except in the numerous essays, videos, stories and things that I've written since, but certainly not an autobiography. But back to you. Why would your siblings, why would your descendants want to know about you? Well, there have been many reasons. For example, the sort of attributes that you have in your life, the sort of gifts, the innate gifts, the genes, I guess you could say. If you were a musician, and there are musicians in those great-grandchildren or grandchildren, they will be happy to learn about you. If you're an artist, the same thing. If you're an inventor, an engineer, a sailor, a soldier, a tinker, a tailor, anything, they will want to know. Can you spare the trouble? Can you sit down and make a few notes? Can you make a bit of a family tree for them? Speaking of family trees, I really had to research mine. I knew virtually nothing and still know nothing about the family on my mother's side. Never met my maternal grandparents. Met their siblings, of course, my uncles and aunties, many of them. But on my mother's side, virtually nothing. And on my father's side, well, he wasn't the type to keep records. So these things are important, especially to people who want to know about you. So let them know about you. Tell your story. Record it somewhere so that they, long after you're gone, can say, well, this was my great-granddad, or this was my grandfather, or this was my great-great-grandfather, or grandmother, as the case may be. Leave a record. After all, we're not on planet Earth for very long, but at least we can make a significant mark and let that mark remain for a while before it fades into oblivion. Do it. Do it for your family.